You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
Boom. Right, Shane.
Yes, we'll start.
A lonely nation turns its eyes to you.
It does.
A nation turns its lonely eyes to you?
Bit of both, potentially. But I'm glad that people are turning their lonely eyes to us because there's plenty to talk about this morning, Ger. We should start with some batshit crazy comments from Arsene Wenger across the weekend. So, for people who are unaware now, Arsene Wenger, the former Arsenal manager, is taking the FIFA coin. He's working with FIFA on their technical committee. He's also their head of global football development. Speaking at a media briefing yesterday is where these comments came to light. So, there, of course, have been protests from a number of countries, and perhaps most notably Germany and Denmark at this World Cup. The hands over the mouths from the German team, the Danish team, kind of setting the way and standing out from other teams in actually doing some minor things at this World Cup.
The point of information, did he mention Australia?
I don't know if he quoted any particular teams.
Right, well,
he said generally speaking.
Yeah, but
well,
you do the quotes there.
This is the point. So the quotes from Wenger were, the teams who performed well at the World Cup were mentally ready. They had focused on the competition and not on political demonstrations. Now, these were the comments that kind of have rubbed people up the wrong way, because what he's saying is, focus on the football and you'll be grand, lads. And concentrate on anything else. Human rights, standing up for LGBT, women's rights. That is just a distraction, and it's going to affect you on the pitch. So fairly mental comments. Like, there were other comments. He was talking about the World Cup as a whole, and little things that have been noticed by the FIFA Technical Committee. They noticed that attacking teams were forced to find space on the flanks in this World Cup, which is something new. Opponents now better protect the centre of the pitch. And another thing, that the role of goalkeepers offering to receive the ball at their feet has dramatically increased 70% since the 2018 World Cup. So those were the footballing things he noticed. But I guess it was the comments on not being distracted by everything else that has stood out mostly from Arsene Wenger yesterday.
Fair play to Arsene Wenger. When you buy him, he stays bought. And it's clear that he's working for FIFA and he's towing the FIFA party line, and that's not really what the world needs at the moment, is it?
No. And it's just the wrong timing as well. The World Cup is still ongoing. He's essentially warning countries who are between now and the end of the World Cup planning anything, because of course the knockout rounds is when the eyeballs increase perhaps on the World Cup, and now would be the time to do something. Even in the World Cup, I'd love to see a team get to the World Cup final and have a protest of actual essence.
It's not too late. It doesn't feel like it's going to happen.
No.
You can't really see any of the remaining teams suddenly deciding to locate their moral compass, which has been buried deep in their millions. But I would point out that Australia were one of the most vociferous and first out the gate, and they've so their manager's disappointed that they didn't do more against Argentina, but they performed bloody well. They got their whole country behind them. They have created memories that will last a lifetime. They have, injected the game at a local level with a massive surge of interest, and nearly created at least a draw/shock against Argentina.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And they were, as you say, one of the teams that stood up and said something of note. The reason for the timing of these comments from Wenger is because it was FIFA's analysis of the group stages. So the group stages being over, their head of chief of global football development stands up and points out all the things that he said about the World Cup group stages to that point. The point is, he didn't have to say this. He could have said all his little comments about the ball being played out wide more often, the goalkeepers being better with their feet. That's all fine and well, but to just little throw in a comment like that was very pointed. I'm not saying it came from upper brass, but there's a weird feeling about little things at this World Cup. The fact that Gianni Infantino pops up on screen at least once every game.
It's a lot, isn't it?
It's bizarre, and that strikes me as something that's on purpose.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he is very famous now. I'm interested to see him in the crowd. Sometimes he's not paying any attention. Sometimes he looks very bored. Sometimes there's nobody sitting beside him.
I think they've probably been told, throw him up on screen there once again. Keep his face famous. That's what he wants.
I don't think he needs it, though. I mean, I understand the point you're making, right?
Yeah.
But somebody somewhere thinks it's a good idea to put the boss on telly.
FIFA, he's discussed it with them, surely. I mean, it seems like the type of thing that they would have discussed.
Well,
you don't put your boss on TV without asking him.
You do. You do it for an attaboy. I think the politics of that are weird. The whole kind of at the same time, right? He's pointedly not the boss. Like, Qatar are the boss.
Yeah,
you know,
on this occasion.
Well, for the duration of this whole thing, he is a guest there. He's using Qatar to make loads and loads of money for FIFA, and I presume he's getting very well ahead himself. And so it's definitely an interesting dynamic that, like, why is he on screen so often? And yet at the same time, I'm always interested to see what the response is like. The sound seems to be on a massive delay from the crowd as well, so you can hear the crowd go mad 45 seconds, well, not 45, but 12 to 15 seconds after whatever it is has been on the big screen in the stadium.
Maybe some days he's not feeling like he doesn't feel like he looks well. Maybe he's
felt cute,
the wrong side of bed.
Might delete later.
He might have woke up and gone, today I feel like not being on screen, because he likes to analyse how he feels on a given day.
And that's why I think that it's more likely that they've decided they're going to be putting him on screen. You better watch yourself here.
Potentially.
Because, like, let's face it, right? He wanted the Budweiser money, right? There's no way the FIFA did not want the Budweiser money. There's no way that they were, like, happy to just go, yeah, I'm going to go back to, I'm going to go back to one of our best customers, friends and partners, sponsors.
Yeah. Money is money.
Purveyors of money, and tell them, sorry, we can't take your money. Can't take your money.
Literally days before the World Cup.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it is interesting that he's always on screen.
It is bizarre.
Now, Blatter would have been on screen a fair bit. I just don't remember if it was as egregious as this.
So it's so pointed. It's like he pops up on screen, and for some games he's getting booed by the crowd.
Well, that's why I don't think I don't think they're asking him.
Yeah, but the booing has stopped. I can't hear it anymore.
Well,
maybe it's the feed that we're being filtered, but it all seems a little bit weird. In tandem with Wenger's strange comments, no need to say what he said.
Yeah, but obviously he felt like there was a need to say it, you know.
Yeah, but that's
so he wanted to say it. So while he's doing his master's work, he also wanted to do his master's work. He felt like this is the type of thing that's important for him to say, which, I mean, I don't know. Wenger was amazing for that short window, and then mediocre for a long time, and now, what have you done for me lately, Arsene? Never once mentioned in dispatches about the French job. Never once. Not like on a long list of candidates. Obviously, the French know something. They're like, no.
Are you this is like David Beckham wasn't world class? Are you saying Wenger wasn't a world class manager at one point?
No, he was very, 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 very good.
He wasn't a world class manager.
When he was clearly a world class manager, right?
Yeah, fair.
When he had the market intelligence that nobody else had of the French market, and were able to buy good French players, good scouting from abroad. Who knew that would be something worth bringing to the Premier League? Mm-hmm. But that wore off, and look, now, in fairness, the team did still always qualify for the Champions League, which, at the time there was none of the Gulf money slushing through, so maybe it was easier.
Yeah. What annoys me about this at the weekend and listening to Wenger was that even United fans have a massive soft spot. I don't want to speak for all of them, but a big soft spot for Arsene Wenger
because you always beat him at the end. At the end when you got the best, you got the best of it. He stayed beaten.
Yeah, but I mean,
kept cozying up to Ferguson at the end.
Yeah, well, the same way United fans would have
had a house-trained dog.
Well, United haven't had a good record against Liverpool in recent years, but they probably have a soft spot for Klopp because of the type of person he is. I'm not speaking for all United fans. Some United fans are probably screaming at me right now going, I don't like Klopp. Which is fair enough, but he's just a likeable guy, as was Wenger. But that's what surprised me about the comments on Sunday. So, felt pointed, I'm not going to say a directive, but a little bit uneasy, just like the Infantino popping up on screen all the time. It just feels like a FIFA North Korea created propaganda imagery. That's what the whole weekend felt like to me. When you're seeing Infantino pop up on screen, you're seeing Wenger's comments, it's like, do you really need to say that?
He's also wrong. Like, that's the other thing. He is wrong. The Socceroos were the first ones out the gate, created a video, and they've definitely performed at least as well, if not better than we thought they were going to do. They've created their own bit of history. Like, the German team has a bad manager at the moment.
Yeah.
And, he clearly had not managed his squad properly. He's playing players who haven't played enough football. He's playing players who've played too much football. It's nothing to do with the fact that they decided to make a stand. They just weren't very good at football at the moment, which I'm sure the data would have shown up if Arsene had looked or had decided not to interpret it the way he did. So, all right.
Yeah.
In the red, Wenger.
Had to be in the red, Arsene Wenger this weekend. Also in the red is boxing generally, I guess. Ger, because boxing has a problem. Boxing has a number of problems, but Fury against Chisora on Saturday night left me and perhaps many others wondering where the hell is boxing at, because For the souls, the 56,000 odd souls, how many was it in total? 56,789, what I would call mugs in the crowd at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Saturday night, because they're there to watch a fight that, if you look at the bookies' odds beforehand, wasn't a fight. Tyson Fury's in his prime, perhaps, at 34, which is kind of scary. Derek Chisora is 39 in a couple of months, and this was a fight for a payday. Let's be perfectly honest about it, because it wasn't a fight that put two titans at a similar level of their career up against each other. Derek Chisora earned €2.3 million for this fight. That's why this fight happened. It was a 13th professional loss for him as well. His record isn't good. If you look at, if anyone watched the fight or you saw even photographs afterwards, Chisora's right eye looks horrific for most of the fight. And the fact that it was only stopped in the 10th round via TKO for a Tyson Fury win is perhaps the most concerning thing. But they, of course, as I said, 56,000 fans there, they wanted to put on a show. And like, I was even, during the fight itself, screenshotting some of the comments I was seeing from boxing fans on Twitter. Chisora's corner needs to stop this fight. Only 3 rounds in, Fury's already trying not to hurt him. Stop the fight before Fury kills Chisora. Walking body bag for Fury. The ref must stop this Chisora v Fury fight, or else I'm switching off my TV. It had that feel to it from round 3. Now, as I said, this fight went to round 10, which is terrifying, because there could have been serious damage done to Derek Chisora. Of course, he has to fight someone, and Chisora was the dummy who had to step in, because Anthony Joshua hasn't signed any contracts. That fight doesn't appear to be any closer whatsoever to happening, and I don't think it will happen at this point. But like, the fact Tyson Fury retired in April, and he said, "Oh, I meant it." We know he didn't mean it at the time.
He's never meant it.
No, he's never read it when he said it. He says he's had 4 months at home with his kids and his dog over the summer, and he's been relaxing and kind of focused on this fight as well. There was the lovely, wholesome #classy gesture video after the fight where himself and Chisora broke bread, as is tradition for friends. And that's the point. Chisora and Fury are mates. They get on very well. And that was quite apparent, because the uppercuts were hurting Derek Chisora quite notably. And there were points in the fight where you felt if Fury had really wanted to hurt Chisora there, he would have. There was that element of holding back.
Yeah, so look, in fairness, Fury says, we weren't in there to do serious damage to each other. This is from Jeff Powell, who was ringside, and it's in the Mail, and everybody in the papers is saying pretty much the same thing you're saying this morning, that it was a complete mismatch and it should never really have happened. But £2 million is what Chisora got. I do think that, like, the boxers know. This is like the big thing in other sports is that, you know, you might get damaged, you might suffer long-term permanent damage if you get a knock. But in boxing, the plan at the start of the fight is to concuss your opponent so badly that they can't function anymore. Mm-hmm. That's the rules. That's built in, that's stitched in. That's the aim of it. And like, when you say boxing has a problem, it's kind of always had that problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that, like, so let's spin forward when it's Fury Alexander Usyk, which Fury says will happen either in Saudi Arabia or in England. Either of them would be great venues. So more than likely it's going to happen in Saudi Arabia, right? Because that's where the money will come from, and it'll give us, for the first time in a long time. Is it the first time in a long time? One person having everything, or did Klitschko have all the belts at some point, or did he not?
I can't remember. It feels like the last time, yeah.
But yeah, so all the belts, everything up, biggest fights, like one of the biggest fights in history.
Yeah.
Everybody will tune in. Everybody will pay whatever it is. It's like $80 in America and 20 quid here, and like, this fight will be forgotten, I think.
Yeah, but like, look, we as sports journalists, and maybe we are sheltered because the World Cup is on, but one of the lads in the office asked on Thursday or Friday, do you know, I think Colin asked this actually, do you know that Fury and Chisora are fighting this weekend? And I was like, no. I hadn't heard a thing. I hadn't seen weigh-ins, I hadn't seen any fighting talk from them, I hadn't seen any social media activity.
Because no one cares.
No one cares.
Yeah.
It was just one of these fights that snuck completely under the radar. Normally I'd be watching these fights and enjoying the build-up. No one cares about this fight.
Well, that I think that's because everybody knows what the result is.
Yeah.
And
it's
like, everybody knows the result of this fight, because he's a tomato can. This was supposed to be, as you said, the window for them to have a big fight, and they didn't, because they couldn't get the organisation done. And so this window was open. Everybody makes a little bit of money and they move on. That's like.
But Chisora's been the tomato can all his career, and
oh, now you know what tomato can is, right?
Well, there you go. But like, I mean, 56,000 tomato cans in the crowd as well, who are paying to watch this, and they're the suckers. Now, unless it's Qatari stadium numbers and that, there weren't that many people in the crowd, but I think there were. I mean, it beggars belief. People, of course, I get the element of people are big Tyson Fury fans. They want to see him while he's still fighting. He announced he's retiring in April. They're like, oh, I don't have that many more opportunities to see him live in the flesh, fighting it out. But why would you bother watching a fight like this?
Right.
Just, it deserves to be in the red, boxing generally, but the Fury Chisora fight particularly, Ger, I think was one that left a bad taste in the mouth.
John Claffey says, welcome to Boxing Shane. Chisora's been a punching bag all his career. Bohemian29 says, who paid the price for that pay-per-view on the boxing? Was it pay-per-view? Was it?
I think it was, yeah,
Yeah,
but
okay.
anyone who paid that is
Well, I think it's just keeping Tyson Fury busy in a situation where they know there's no risk. And Mark C says, for 2.3 million, let him suck it up. Right, who's in the amber?
Yeah, we're going with Amber next. And last 16 so far, Ger. Now, this is going to sound harsh, and we're going to get to some positives in this because, as we all know, the amber traffic light means we're about to go. We're about to go, Ger. We're about to get positive. So I'm not going to leave this all negative. But the last 16 has been... it's gone to plan so far in terms of results. That's the only negative I would say. I'd like to take this chance to firmly apologise to Lionel Messi. I'm sure he's watching this morning, but I kind of wrote him off during the group stages, I have to say. I said this Argentina team is not built around him anymore. These lads around him, like Alvarez and Fernandes, are coming good. He's not the main man. I was totally wrong, and I hold my hands up this morning. I have to apologise because he is still the main man. And look, you might say, look at Shane, he's all reactive. One performance again for Messi and he's back on board. Like, the Messi-Ronaldo discussion has to stop for me. Like, there is no comparison. And look, it's apples and oranges anyway. They're two different types of footballers, as we all know. So we need to stop comparing them. But if Messi leads Argentina to this World Cup, he's without doubt the greatest player. And I know we said, Ger, that we're kind of behind the whole Spain train and this young team with Gavi and Pedri, and Luis Enrique is a really likeable character. A lot of people would like to see Messi win the World Cup. It would kind of be a little moment for him to perhaps step back. I'd retire if I was him, if I won this World Cup. But that's kind of why I had it in amber, is that Argentina beat Australia, France beat Poland, England beat Senegal. We've got all the results that we expected to get.
Yeah, but it means that we're going to have really, really good quarterfinals.
Well, that's the alternative.
If you get any bad teams making a bit of a shock result at this stage, it leads to a bad quarterfinal, which can lead to a bad semi-final.
Yeah.
Which can sometimes lead to a one-sided final. So I'm okay.
100%.
I'm okay.
You're taking it. You're accepting.
I'm happy.
Yeah, so that's the other side of the coin of all the big teams winning, I guess. The big positive for me at the weekend was Louis van Gaal. And sorry, this entire World Cup. Here's a video I think we have of the Dutch team coming back into the hotel. They're all given face masks. Just look at the atmosphere. They were getting abused, Ger, online for this from some quarters. Why are they celebrating winning a last 16 match, getting to a quarter final?
They got their own faces. I was wondering.
Well, yeah, most of them have their own faces. But Louis van Gaal is about to pop in the screen with his camera phone, like your uncle at every wedding.
I really wish they'd given Van Gaal a face as well. That would have been.
Louis van Gaal's vibes.
Massive Louis.
Yeah, that's immaculate vibes from Louis van Gaal there. Like everything he's doing at the minute, he's one of football's last great characters. Jerry, 71. He had the prostate cancer battle earlier this year. He kept it quiet from his team during qualifying for the World Cup. Announced his retirement, of course, back in 2019. Then the Dutch had that horrific spell under Frank de Boer, and he was like, "Okay, I'll come back for one last World Cup and help you lads out." And just as well he did, because the bonding in this team, anyone who gives out, and people have given out about Van Gaal for those images. Why is your team celebrating? Why are you celebrating beating the USA in the last 16 match? Well, why not? It's creating an atmosphere around the team, a bond. They're going to go into this Argentina game rightly as underdogs in the quarter-final, but why can't they beat them on Friday and get to a World Cup semi-final? And from then, I mean, anything can happen. There was the pictures, the famous pictures in the press conference earlier this tournament where a young journalist, novice journalist, asked Van Gaal for a hug, or said something positive about him. He said, "I'm your biggest fan," and Van Gaal loved it. You could see he was visibly quite emotional at the end of the press conference, hugged him, and again on Twitter going mad. Why is this journalist asking for a hug with Van Gaal? So unprofessional. First of all, leave the kid alone. And second of all, he can do what he wants. And third of all, Van Gaal's happy face made it all worthwhile. There's been a bit of criticism in the Dutch media.
Yeah, there has.
I
guess it's just one of, there's another side to that. You're not really supposed to be asking for hugs at press conferences.
I know.
Kind of creates a bit of the wrong environment. You're not being held to account, You're not really there just to represent yourself. You're there to represent the audience who can't get in.
It's fair.
That's all. There's another viewpoint there, It's
just a lovely little moment. I don't know what media outlet that young lad was representing, but for me, I don't see the problem.
Listen,
I wouldn't do it myself.
Well, okay, I
wouldn't do it myself.
Good to establish that.
But I thought it was quite a wholesome
baselines.
Moment. Yeah.
Marco van Basten, 2 great goals. The rest is something to cry about. As a football lover, I ask myself, what am I looking at? I don't know if I can cope with this much longer. That's in Mary Hannigan's piece in the Irish Times today.
Yeah, like the Dutch style takes a bit of getting used to. And I'm sure for the Netherlands themselves that they're getting criticised. A bit like we criticise Stephen Kenny constantly in the Irish media. Kenny FM even here are known for criticising the team every now and again. But in the Dutch media, they're being very harsh at the moment. They're into the last 8 of the World Cup.
All right.
They're going to play Argentina. But World Cup last 16, no shocks. That's why it was an amber. But yeah, certainly Louis van Gaal giving me some immaculate advice.
Could go into the green, could go red. Right, what's in the green?
Yeah, we're leaning into the green now. So the club action, I know we'll talk with Cathal Malani later on this morning about the club action generally, but Moycullen, for me, Ger, was the story of the weekend. Their first ever county championship win 2 years ago in Galway. They didn't get the chance to play in the provincial that year. It was COVID. So this was their first ever chance at winning a Connacht senior club championship title against Turlestrand, the Sligo champions. And it was a good weekend for Moycullen because their minors won the county championship on Saturday as well. It was an interesting matchup because Don Conlon is the Moycullen manager, and the manager for Turlestrand was Don's former Roscommon teammate Fergal O'Donnell. So it was a nice little mixture of 2 former county teammates with the Rossies. Playing into a freezing breeze in the first half in Pearse Stadium in Salthill. Hardly a surprise when it's Pearse Stadium in Salthill that there was a freezing breeze. And look, it was a big day for Turlestrand as well because the first time back in the final in 4 decades for them. So a big moment, 2 teams that kind of hadn't been there, and a bit of a novel pairing in the Connacht Senior Club Championship title. And Peter Cook, there's not much to be said about Peter Cook. I think he scored 121 in the Connacht, or in the championship generally so far for Moycullen this year, so to date, and he has been imperious. It wasn't in the Galway panel last year. There was a bit of travelling, I think, or work. I know he works for an American company and works on their hours. So he works strange hours, Irish time. He's based in Ireland, but works for an American company on their hours. Cian O'Neill, of course, Galway selector under Pádraig Joyce, was up from Cork to watch this match of the weekend. 3 unbelievable points from play for Peter Cook in the second half. They will be mad keen to have him back in the Galway. Like, to think Galway got to an All-Ireland final against Kerry without the likes of Peter Cook and others, but Peter Cook specifically, for me, having watched this Moycullen team closely, like I was at one of Moycullen's games in the Galway Championship this season, a couple of months ago, back in Salthill, and they were brilliant. They have some serious players, like the likes of Paul Kelly and Desi Keneally as well. They have a number of members already of that Galway panel under Pádraig Joyce. They play in the semi-finals in January, the winners from Ulster. So Kilcoo or Glen. Now, in many people's eyes, the winner of that Kilcoo-Glen game are going to win the All-Ireland. There is a small matter of Kilmacud Crokes.
What? Yeah, in many people's eyes, what?
In my eyes. I think the winner of that game will win the All-Ireland. I actually think Glen will win Ulster. I'm putting myself out there, and I think Glen will then beat Moycullen in the semi-final.
Walsh is going to win the All-Ireland.
You think so?
Well,
I wouldn't be. I'm never in my life going to back against Malachy O'Rourke. And he took over Glen a couple of years ago, and they had never won the Derry Senior Championship. Now they've won a couple. They're into an Ulster club title against Kilcoo. Kilcoo have been less than their usual impressive best this year. That was the big story, though, Moycullen from the weekend. I have to give a mention of my dad's home club, Dunmore McHale's, the famous club of the Donnellan dynasty in Galway. Michael Donnellan and co. Of course, Michael moved in 2005 to Salthill Loughnaccara to pick up his All-Ireland club title. But Dunmore McHale's won the Connacht Intermediate club title at the weekend against the Dominics from Roscommon. They have been excellent in the Connacht Championship. And a small little village to win an All-Ireland Intermediate like that, a Connacht Intermediate. And they push on now, and you're 2 games away. I think it's Rathmore from Kerry are the odds-on favourites for the All-Ireland Intermediate at the minute. Carduff, Banty McElhaney's club in Monaghan, will play Galbally from Tyrone in the Ulster final next weekend. There's some big hitters left in the Intermediate Championship. I think it was a team from Wexford won at the weekend in the Leinster. So Moycullen for me was the story of the weekend.
You appear to have accidentally tuned into a broadcast from Shannon's side. Something's going on here. Someone has seized the airwaves there for the last minute.
It was Moycullen. I didn't want Moycullen not to get the credit.
Grand,
so they deserve to be in the green.
I see what you did. You pivoted from a great story for Galway football into like a potted history of Monaghan. Great, yeah, okay.
Dunmore. I wanted to mention Moycullen just to get to Dunmore McHale's. Well, that was my point.
Dunloy beat Slaughtneil in the hurling, so they're up against St Thomas's. And the other semi-final is obviously going to be the one that everybody wants to see, the replay of last year, Ballyhale and Ballygunner. And Ballyhale were great in patches against Kilmacud, and Kilmacud were very good and ran them close. We'll talk a bit more about that a little bit later on. Last one in green for now.
Yeah, we're going to move on to the green proper. Sinead Diver. What can you say about Sinead Diver, except for the fact that we only wish she was racing in Irish colours still. 45 years of age at the minute. Broke the record for the fastest time run by an Irish woman in a marathon at the weekend. Also broke the Australian women's marathon record by more than 1 minute in Valencia. So a time of 2 hours, 21 minutes and 34 seconds. For anyone watching who's done a marathon, and I really only threw this in, Ger, just to again bring up the fact that I have run a marathon. So in case you're wondering why this is in green, it's in green for my ego. She still represents Australia. She moved to Australia more than 20 years ago. Born in Mayo, she's a Belmullet woman originally. 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, finished 10th for the Aussies. Now, she's still quite young to the sport. She only took up marathon running 12 years ago when she was 33, but she has fairly come on. Now, there of course are reasons why someone can be so good at the age of 45 in marathon running. There's less strain on your body, so she took it up quite late, so I guess the pounding on the pavement hasn't been as constant or as regular when she was younger, so she's able to probably do it for now. She spoke, she had disappointment in March. She was unable to complete the race, but she said, I've wanted this for so long, this being the record. I wasn't sure if I was good enough to get it. I've had a few goes at it now. This was my third crack at it, and every time I line up it takes a lot. Things have to really fall in place for something like this to happen. Sorry, to beat the Australian record by over a minute might not seem like a lot given you're running for 2 hours 21, but that is quite significant. And the fact that she's beaten Katrina McKiernan's Amsterdam 98 record for fastest marathon by an Irish woman as well is quite incredible. So props to Sinead Diver. Deserves to be in the green, and we'll still claim her as our own. Even though
can we claim her? Is that not like
100%?
Can we?
I mean, she only moved to Australia
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah,
but she was 25. I mean,
no, I'm sure that she has dual nationality, but from a what great for her. What credits do you get? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you obviously want to inspire.
What roads did she run when she was younger around Belmullet? That's the question.
Yeah, and look, and it's great for Belmullet, but like, is it not like a story of lost something to Irish athletics? Is there not something there where we're like, oh, it's great, we're all great, well, actually, is it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fair point. It's like watching it's not quite like watching the Aussie rules players do well in Australia, because they were more recently departed.
Well, if they went and, like, if we cared about the international rules and they came back and they played for Australia and they killed us, you'd be like, well, that was maybe should we have lost that? You know?
Yeah, you can watch it and still enjoy it because she is Irish. She is Irish.
I'm not saying you don't enjoy it.
Well, is it like Billy Walsh?
We're not claiming her. Like, we've done nothing. Haven't helped her in this. Have not been an important part in her success.
Do we have to be, though, to take some satisfaction from an Irish athlete?
I'm saying satisfaction and claiming, they're different. Like, yeah, I'd say, it's a very interesting, it's such an unusual case, and the results are so spectacular. I mean, maybe there's a lesson there for late bloomers and other sports and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, and look, the weather in Australia, I'm sure, helped her decision, A, to go down there in the first place, and B, your training has to be quite...
We're all obsessed about the weather.
Well, we are a little bit, but...
We couldn't possibly have done this in rainy, wet, cold, grey...
Maybe that's what made her. Maybe that's what made her, Ger. That's why we created this.
It's not too late for you, Shane. You're roughly the same age she was when she went down.
Well, 29.
You're always banging on about how great you are as a marathon runner. Go and do your 2 hours 20 minutes or 2 hours 5 minutes, whatever the Irish record is for the men. Right, it's 8 o'clock. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. That was this week's edition of the Gillette Labs Performance Rankings.
OTB AM's Performance Rankings with Gillette.